Hello, Dominic.
Hey, Jenna.
Hey, do you like? I'm first of all, I am showing up as my fully authentic self. I am in overalls and like a no sleeve t-shirt and no makeup, and like this is just raw, honest Jenna.
And I am raw and honest because I am just sweaty and no, I have just my t-shirt. Well, not t-shirt. I have a sweatshirt. No, sweatshirt. What is this? It's a shirt.
Listen, which is
Be
what
grateful
we're
for that.
wearing
You do
doesn't
not
matter
want to
because
see.
again, this is a podcast. But the point is that we're showing up to celebrate 20 episodes as
20 episodes.
I know, our honest selves. And so with that, we're gonna start the show. Hi, I'm Jenna,
And I'm Dom, and we're both award-winning journalists.
who've recently been laid off.
Our industry is experiencing a seismic shift, and it's shed a lot of really good journalists.
So where does that leave us? Well, we're definitely laid off.
And we're looking for new jobs, looking for what's left of the industry, and what to do next.
And we're looking at all of it. So if you're a fellow laid off journalist, a working journalist, or someone who admires the craft, we're looking to build community.
Develop new skills, and try to figure out what just happened.
Welcome to Laid Off and Looking. All right, so how have you been?
I've been good. I'm tired.
Well, yes, that's and that's like I think the biggest thing around I would say the biggest subject. By the way, I still have allergies. I didn't overdose myself with Benadryl like I did for the last show. So I'm
Right.
not like all Benadryl high, but like my nose still itches.
You sound much better though.
I can breathe.
As I still try and fix my microphone.
It's
Do you like
still like
that?
it's like pick one and then like sacrifice the other. Like you can breathe, but you're gonna be like scratching your nose all day.
I know. Well, you sound so much better, so that's good.
I feel so
How
much better.
are you doing? Well,
I'm
I
doing
guess feeling better.
yes, feel first and foremost feeling better. And yeah, like I mean, being tired, I think first and foremost is the realization we are in month 6. It's been 6
Yeah.
months since we were laid off,
Hmm.
and it's I didn't really realize it until I sat down and thought about it. So sorry, I need a tissue.
And actually, before you even get into that story,
Yeah.
I do want to say part of a sign, which we talked about this before too, part of a sign
Ugh.
about how tired we both are, was last week when you were going to Yale.
Oh, that's
Uh,
right. Oh my God. I can't
I guess it was actually 2 weeks ago. Well, yeah, almost. I guess a week and a half ago, whatever it was.
whatever. It was before,
I'd
in the
love you to tell
before.
this story of because I just want to set the stage here. So months ago, you had told me that you were going to be partaking in an event at Yale University.
Yes.
And super, that's amazing. And I was so excited. And you had said sometime, I guess it was around Memorial Day week. And my thing was, I remember one day, Jenna was like, "Oh, it's actually I forgot. It was a week and a half ago of like the past Thursday." And I remember you telling me, "Oh," and I was like, "Oh, that's weird. I thought it was a Friday. I thought you had mentioned a Friday." And then you're like, "No, no, it's Thursday." And I'd love for you to take over the story from there, Jenna.
Okay, so I will begin at the beginning. First of all, the headline, yes, I spoke on stage at Yale, and that was super awesome. And a big thank you to Naomi Lewin, friend of, I guess, friend of the pod, but definitely a friend of mine. We worked together uh for a while, and so I was just very, very, very honored to be plucked and asked to go. Now, here's how the story back up. I don't know, sometime in Jesus, my nose, sometime in like maybe March or April or something like that. She reached out to me. We stayed in touch. I try to stay in touch with as many people as I can within reason. I mean, I'm only human. And she told me that she was putting together a panel about media for obviously an event at Yale. It was a her class was celebrating their 50th reunion. There we go. So it was a 50th reunion thing. And she was like, we need somebody to talk about new media. And you immediately came to mind. And I was like, oh God. And then of course all of the like imposter syndrome stuff immediately started to kick in. Like, am I really the best person to talk about media, especially new media? Like I really traditionally I've worked in, I worked in radio and I worked in television, etc. But I dabble into social media, but am I really the best person? But then I had to like sort of check myself and be like, no, Jenna, you are perfectly capable of addressing
Of
this issue.
course.
Exactly. My
We all.
imposter syndrome
Yes.
can be it can be persistent.
Yes.
There we go. Okay. So she asked me to do that and I was like, absolutely yes. And so time goes on and she told me what the date was. Um and so time goes on, and for some reason, I got it in my head because it was basically at the end of May. And
Hmm.
I associate the what marks the end of May to me is Memorial Day weekend.
Hmm.
And so initially, God, my nose. I just put it in the back of my head. Like I did put the date that she had given me into my phone, but I put the whole thing in my head as Memorial Day weekend. Now, what I forgot or what I didn't really realize even until this year, so I was like today years old when I realized Memorial Day weekend is a floating holiday. It's another one of those fun floating holidays that can be, and it's like the last Monday in May. Um, which makes sense, but of course, the last Monday like can come when there's still another 6 days left in the week, which is what I think it was this year. So Memorial Day weekend came a lot sooner than I thought it did. And that's when I, of course, checked my calendar in a panic and I was like, oh my God. And then it was like, no, I don't have to go Memorial Day weekend. It's next week. But the date that I had in my phone, in my calendar, was for a Thursday. And so I just, didn't question it, whatever, got dressed, got ready, got in the car, drove out to Yale. And Yale's not that far away from me. I'm in the Hudson Valley, so it's about the distance between me driving to New York City. We're talking like a shade under 2 hours, no big deal. But the point is I get out there and then the building that where this was supposed to be taking place was locked. There's nobody on the streets. And I'm like, what is going on? And I stop one of the security guards and she's like, I can't let you into the. Anyway, the long story short is that I go back and I look at my phone and or the email that I had gotten. And even though I had the date right, the day was for Friday. Because I remember thinking, like, Thursday's a weird day to have this, but you know what? It's not my 50th anniversary. Who knows? Or 50th reunion, I should say. So, anyway, so I get back in the car, I drive all the way back, and then the next day, get up, get dressed again, drive all the way out. And again, it's not that far. And yeah, I had an amazing time. The audience was really cool. We ended up talking more about journalism in general. I mean, I did as much as possible try to bring up how the way we consume media, which we've talked about a lot, has
Hmm.
changed significantly. And so that's forcing a lot of businesses to change their business model on the fly, which is never a good way to
No,
do something like that.
but
So, but I had an amazing time, and
that's
like I said, I
great.
met some really amazing people, and I'm super glad that I drove out to Yale twice.
Yes.
But
I just remember I just remember getting a phone call from you when on your way back from that Thursday and
yeah.
being like, Tom.
Oh my God. I mean, it's one of those things that like, oh, this only happens to me. And I
No,
know
it
also
doesn't.
that's not true. It happens to everybody.
Yes, but it was a good thing because remember we were talking. I was like, at least you made it there. At least you didn't miss it. That would have been the bad part if you would have been like, oh, I
Actually, that
totally
would have been the
forgot.
really tragic part is if I missed
Yes,
it. And as I, told myself and I told everybody afterwards, I was like, hey, at least now I know the way.
yes, you do. Yes, you do.
So, you got to find the bright spots. But yeah, so that was a big plus for me. If you follow me on social media at all, you would have seen I posted about it and again, I had a great time.
That's great. That's great. So, of course, 20th episode, kind of a big deal that we, of course, I think we've really stayed with this. It's been an amazing experience staying with the podcast and really doing, yes, I know. What's that look? What's
That
that
look
look?
that look is like I mean, here's the thing. We both know content. Although there's a whole lot of stuff around creating content that when you are in a fully staffed
Hmm.
organization, there's a bunch of different jobs. Now,
Hmm.
when two people have to do all those jobs, oh my
Yeah.
God. And again, it's not impossible. We have definitely learned that nothing is impossible. But yeah, this is
Oh,
I now understand why sometimes when people try to take something like, a podcast up on a whim can get completely overwhelmed and give up. And I'm super proud of us that we've stuck with it. But even as two media professionals, we both were just like, oh my God.
well, yeah, it's like we've discussed this, in the sense of like how much work this is, booking guests, thinking of each week of trying to think of a new topic. And it's a grind too. And it's a great grind because it's something obviously we're trying to build for ourselves into
Yes.
something. And initially of course when we started out with this, it was just a way to sort of help express what we were going through and we still are going through. But at the same point
Hmm.
too, now we're at a different level of trying to build something. So but it's definitely still, just like many people when doing their own business, right? So is or doing something on your own and getting on, it's a grind.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and again, you would think that we knew that having come off of, a daily show,
I
but we
didn't
were on a daily show
know.
with a full staff.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And that
It's
that makes a huge difference.
I mean,
Um,
go
yeah.
ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying that literally is a huge difference when there's like, a group of maybe 10 or 11 people working on something versus two people just trying to churn out something every week. And that's on top of, by the way, us both still navigating our own unemployment
Hmm.
journeys,
Hmm.
still trying to figure out, how we're going, like, I'm doing little side hustle things here and there,
Hmm.
like, and then of course just, the emotional whatever of what this journey has been, processing the loss of something that we were both incredibly passionate about and, also processing the loss of well, the financial security that comes with a steady paycheck.
Hmm.
Like there's a lot of emotional loss to process in addition to being like, okay, so here's what we're going to do.
Oh no, for sure. It changes the way you see certain things. And I think how the industry is changing too starts to it, you start to reevaluate about, where do you what's next? Um, what do you want out of I mean, I guess that's my thing too, like leading up to this, like so far we've done this obviously, of course now we've done this for 20 episodes. It's great. Like what have you, I guess, what has this experience taught you so far, both like professionally and personally? What have you taken from it?
um, I have taken from okay. Here's one thing that like I still struggle with.
Hmm.
Um, and I guess I'll ask you in real time here.
Go
Do
ahead.
you consider me to be a type A person?
Do I consider you to be a type A personality? I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I think I think you are, but
What
not
is
what?
so okay, I'm
But
perplexed.
not in it, but not in the way I think that sometimes, you see, you know what it is? It's interesting. It's like some type A personalities, there's a negativity that's attached to it. People can
Yes.
try to attach a sense of um being kind of like, I don't give a shit. I'm just gonna do whatever I gotta do to get and that's not you.
Hmm.
You get very excited about certain things. And with that, there's a passion.
Yeah.
And I think that passion leads you to want to do something with that. So you are you have a lot of the positive for me. Yes, you're a type A personality. You're somebody who likes to get things done and you have no problem stepping up and leading and moving ahead and taking a chance. Um, but you do it, you always do it with such grace, I believe, and care. You know what I mean? Like you're not the
That
type of
might be what you just said, might be what I've always, because I associate type A personality with an abusive personality.
and
Because in
that's
my
not you.
mind,
Yeah.
I'm just like, I am no, if you think I'm type A, you have no idea what
Yeah.
a type A person is.
But you have the best qualities of that. That's why when you said that, when you asked me that
Uh,
question, it's like,
yes,
yes,
but not in an offensive
but not in an
way.
offensive way. Yeah. I mean, no, there are people when you hear them say, I'm a type A, and there are people who are like, I don't want to be around those people because they're terrifying and they look like that's
Exactly.
not you. That's
Okay.
not you. So you have, yes, you're a type A personality, but in all the best ways.
Okay. All right. Well then, all right. So To answer your question then, and I just had to ask that because I had heard that from like, I don't know, like the fourth or fifth person, like just randomly, and like blah 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 blah, because Jenna, you're totally type A. And I'd be like, where are you people getting this from? But I will say, side note to the side note, as my therapist once pointed out, is that people who genuinely are either control freaks or, meticulous or type A or whatever will rarely ever self-identify that way because apparently we all think our behavior is normal. Which in my mind, I'm just like, no, but if you want to make something happen, you got to make it. Anyway, all right, enough of that. So what I have learned is I think that I have learned a lot about, you know, when I say leadership skills, I don't mean to say that in the sense that like I'm totally in control. I'm not saying it that way. I'm saying leadership skills in the terms of what exactly that requires.
Hmm.
How, there's so many things that I've learned that especially about communication. Like, how do you disseminate information? Because there's a lot of things, again, when you're working with a fully staffed out organization or
Mhm.
even, a team or something like that, that, yeah, that they need to happen, but because it's somebody else's job, it's not something that I would think to communicate. There's things that I've learned about that. There's things that I've learned about, even I guess with my type A person, but still like time management for myself. Um, which actually I think is just a big thing in general for as a, you know, jobless person. And that is, I at least need to be able to function. I need to have some sort of like a schedule or some sort of rhythm about my day. I can't just be out there floating in the ether, just kind of whatever. Um, some people can do that. I absolutely cannot. And just the importance, at least for me, of having like some sort of schedule or rhythm to my time is just so necessary. So yeah, those are some of the big things that I've learned.
And uh,
How about you?
um, I think I've learned about myself, well, the ability to sort of speak up more and sort of putting myself out there more with this. I doing a podcast has always been in the back of my mind. We both, I remember years ago when we first started, we both worked on one together for our show at the time, and we both loved podcasts, and that was a lot of fun. I've always had a great love for it, and always wanted to be part of something of this universe. So, but at the same point, I always had kind of reservations, about my own. It's like when we talk about the imposter syndrome aspect and what is my voice? Where does it really fit in? Do people even want to hear my voice? And so, I mean,
I
this is really
do.
how. Thank you, but that's really, and I know I always remember just like when we first started this, you were like, Dom, like we're doing it already. We were talking on the phone after we had been laid off and we were talking about just our situations and what's going on in the news media industry and kind of, I remember you were just like, but we're doing it already. So why not record it and with that, it opens this it opens this door to really understanding that you can do, I mean, you have to walk through that door. You have to take the chance because you have no idea where it's going to lead next. It allows you to have more and more experience of being able to speak with other people and kind of build your confidence level up. And I I love the fact that I love how we work together on this, and I love you. I've told you like you've helped me so much in terms of personally, building up my confidence in that way. Even when we go out and do things that are different that I know are outside of my realm of comfort, like just go when we a couple of weeks ago when we went to the event for the Media Mixers
There
event,
we
the
go. Yeah.
episode last week. Um, it's very different to talk to strangers in person versus I've gotten used to the Zooms. And even the Zooms still, like you're talking to a stranger for me, sometimes it carries this weight of I don't want to sound stupid asking that question, or am I going to be the person who, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm going to throw it all off, or and this has happened to me a couple of times, and I've told you sometimes with guests, I will have a question in my head, but because something else comes in my head, then all of a sudden I forget the question. I'm like rambling for like a few seconds, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I forgot what I was going to ask. Then I remember. And then it's so these are all things that I'm getting used to. So I so appreciate learning and kind of allowing myself to sort of just see where being excited about where it could go next and seeing the opportunities. And in turn of also not really, not being really 100% sure what is next. This industry, as we've talked so often, is in a really, um, it's in a really tough
Precarious.
place right now.
It's a
Yes,
nice
yes.
way to put it.
I mean, but it's good. You just have to find your place in it, and I feel like that's my journey right now is finding out, and this has been a great place to land. And that's what I've really been enjoying is being able to do this with you and sort of we've talked too about trying to do different things and kind of it was interesting a couple of weeks ago. This is no, it was last week. We were about to do a meeting with someone on the phone, and uh, we had not been aware that it was the uh, Trump, the decision for the Trump hush money case.
Oh, I know. First of all, can I just interject and just say how much of a milestone that is that neither one of us even knew it was the verdict that was coming up?
It's like we knew that he was still. I felt like that. I felt like that case had been going on forever. So it was just sort of like it was completely fallen out of my, which is obviously for the two of us, we worked on a show which was a daily news show, so that was something we always were aware of.
Oh, exactly. Like a year ago, my brain would have been hyper tuned into it.
And being able to react at the last minute, if it wasn't for that day, it was for the next day, and it was then the guests and what angles are you taking, and it's a fun, there's a lot of energy that goes into it.
Oh,
But
totally.
and I just remember the both of us were in the call, we were like, Trump verdict. We were like, the verdict's in, like, oh wait a
Well, I
minute,
mean, in
that's
all
right.
fairness, the jury did deliberate for like maybe I think it was like 9 hours or
Yeah.
something incredibly short. But at the same time, we both, I think, were just like, wait, so we're done already? Like neither one of us was paying that much attention, and I'm very proud of both of us for that.
Yes. Yeah. And I think it's kind of, I mean, this experience too, um, having a little bit of a, for so many years of being in that kind of energy, because it does take a lot. I mean, as exciting as it is, and as much, it also is really, um, it can burn you out. And I think that's what we've talked about on here too, just how real burnout is. And it's nice when, I mean, that was a nice aspect of this was learning how to let go of some of that and not be so burnt out from it all. Because the news is always still there too. It's still
Mm-hmm.
happening.
No, it's still happening. There's like obviously, an adrenaline rush. Like news breaks. Like if you're in a partially staffed or fully staffed newsroom, news breaks, man, and like the adrenaline just goes up. It's like, and hopefully you're in a place where, while it might be a little chaotic, or whatever, everybody has a job, everybody knows what their job
Hmm.
is, and like it's like the whole place just comes alive and is humming
Hmm.
like a well-oiled machine or
Yep.
like a beehive or something. And then, when it's over, say, like so the news it's been broken, and all of the, the immediate reactions, as much as we can like in the moment contextualize, all the people that we can interview, the, in real time commentary from, witnesses or people who were involved, whatever, when all of that's done, it is a crash when you're done. Like because your adrenaline comes back down, except I feel like it drops lower than it was before the
Hmm.
news broke. And yeah, that it because like then the next day you would come into work and you're just like, oh my God. Like just exhausted.
Yeah, and you don't really, and I listen, I can only speak for broadcast, as I've never worked in print,
Same
nor
here.
radio. So I don't know what it's like when you're working in breaking news on television. It is you just it's nonstop. And that's the thing. It's the fact that even when you think you've gone through a number of, stories, and there have been plenty of times over the years where it's like you have two or three breaking stories happening within the same week or over a month, and you're working weekends, and that's
Oh
part of your
yeah.
job. The only thing is you just never really have that opportunity to recuperate
Yes, you
and
don't really, you live at like fight or flight the whole time.
the whole
Another
time.
thing that I was gonna say is when it comes to working, so there's a phrase at least that I know we used in radio. I don't know if they use it in television as well, wall to wall.
Oh yeah, wall to
Okay,
wall
yeah,
coverage, you
wall to
mean?
wall coverage. Okay.
Yeah.
God, I'm gonna sneeze.
Blush.
Is there another one? Okay, that was two. We're done. Okay, anyway, so wall to wall coverage and yeah, it's you're living at like, and that in and of itself is physically exhausting. And on top of that, when you have multiple breaking news stories, you you don't really get to process anything because
Nope.
you're constantly just trying to make sure that the news feed is being fed because you're going live now, now, now. Again, it's exhilarating, but it can also be exhausting.
It and it can, especially when every year there's, I think of over the past like 9 years, especially, you know, between elections. Every year
Oh
there's a
God.
exactly. Every year there's a presidential election, and then, state elections. And then, I mean, we're here in New York, so every year felt like each summer I was preparing for a different big election happening. And you
Mayoral
just,
elections. I mean,
yes,
that in New York in and of itself is just like, oh my
but
God.
you really do burn out without even realizing it. So, um, that's a reality of it too. And guess what? Sometimes you just don't have, obviously, that it's the field we work in, right? Every field has, but I feel like of course, every industry has this kind of thing going on where, you can burn out. And I think we all try to figure out ways to balance it. And this time has really been interesting, not being part of this cycle that way, and detaching from it a little bit. Allows you to
One
see
of
things a little differently.
Yeah, one of somebody mentioned to me because initially, and this would have been, I guess, maybe back in like December, because news breaks all the time, even during the holidays.
Hmm.
And I can't remember what it was that happened. It was something very hyper local that we would have covered. And I remember just like, oh my God, like I saw the news flash, and then the first thing that crossed my mind was like, oh my God, so like this would be the person to talk to, and this bit, and somebody's got to make sure that they ask this question, and this is like really important to contextualize the story. And I think I casually tweeted about the fact that like I had that reaction, and then I had to stop and remind myself, no, you don't have to do that. At
Hmm.
least you're not doing that right now. And one of, somebody on Twitter responded and they were just like, it takes a little while for that twitch to go away. Because for the first few, definitely weeks, well over a month, might have been the first few months after the layoff. Yeah. Like news would break and immediately my brain would just shift into like, breaking news coverage zone. Like this is what we need to
Hmm.
do. And even when we started the podcast, and I think we talked
Hmm.
about this initially, we had stories that we were just like, oh my God, we got to get on this. We got to like address this and be like, okay,
Hmm.
so we're not going to talk about this week, but next week, da 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 da. And it took a while to be like, no, dude, this is a different animal. You do not have to treat it that way.
Exactly. It and you could, and I think there's a really good aspect to this too, because again, stepping away allows you to see things in sometimes different ways. Sometimes when you're working that way, you're you just are in this like hamster wheel of this, just constantly just churning out, and you burn out, and then you're just kind of like on this of way of just continually working on this story, but at the same point, stepping away from it allows you to absorb things a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Not just saying about the story itself, but I think just how it impacts each of us personally.
Yeah.
And I think something when you're working in news, sometimes you fail to see that, because you're so much about trying to at least, distance yourself from that personal level of the story. It doesn't, certain stories do impact us, but then there are some that you are like, I'm putting out this story and I'm letting people sort of judge for themselves how they see this, what they take away from this. But yeah, I have to say that was really interesting because I was just like, oh wow, I didn't realize that story was out there. And it was nice to afterwards not have to be on top of that story for the next. You know what I've learned is news will again, news will always be out there. The information will always be out there. You don't have to be on top of it every second of the day in order to really understand it. If
When
that
you're
makes
not, no, when you're not
working it.
working in it, yes. And that's one of the things that like I didn't understand from my friends who would be like, I didn't follow the news. I just can't anymore. And I'm like, wait, what? But now I understand. Now, this doesn't mean that I don't, continue to follow stuff. There's still
Right.
like even right before we started, I got a push notification, something else about the Diddy story. So, and of just as a child of the 90s, I am very curious to see how all of this plays out. This is I think not just as a child of the 90s, but as a black woman who was a black girl in the 90s, seeing how this particular narrative plays out, I am very, very curious and invested in. But, it's like, I still follow all of my reporter friends
Mhm.
on Twitter and stuff like that. So I'm aware of the, let's say, shenanigans of New York City's current mayor. But am I like as into the minutia of no, no. And it's nice.
Well, it's nice, but there's a difference between being informed and then I think being overly sort of you can be you can just there can be this oversaturation of information. And I notice this happening sometimes when you could be out there and it's like how we get sort of caught up in our whether it's on social media or if it's anything else, you can just keep looking into stories and you keep going on and on and on. And it doesn't really it's almost like you do need that step that way to just connect for a little bit because or else what ends up happening is you get frustrated. You become angry because then you start really absorbing the story. So I think there's a good way of balancing that, of getting the information, but also being able to live life and do other things too, having a balance in life
Well, I
with
mean,
that.
for regular people, I absolutely regular people. For civilians, I'm
Civilians, yeah, you
so
go.
oh my God, so terrible. But I really don't know how that works if you are a
I know.
news professional. I really don't know how you find that balance.
It's a tough,
It
yeah, but that's where you sometimes I think people do need that. Even if you are in the profession of news, you do need that break sometimes. You do need
oh,
to step away a little bit to
completely.
have that balance.
You know what I would love the option of is if you could step away. You're still working, but maybe you're covering a different beat.
Yeah.
Like you're covering like instead of like I know you're really big on movies and
Mhm.
pop
Um,
and I mean listen,
and pop
all of
culture,
us
yeah.
are I can't say like, oh, you're into pop culture. All
I
of us are
know.
into pop culture. It's just to different degrees and what aspects of pop culture are
Right.
you invested in. But like for me, I would love to be able to, like maybe step away and focus on something different, like
Right.
fashion. Now, I
Mhm.
want to be very, very clear because sorry, I'm still wiping my nose here. A lot of times when people talk about fashion, it can be maligned in a very flighty and flaky sort of way, like, oh my God, like it's some sort of like a silly young woman's thing. And I absolutely would not put it that way at all. I think that fashion journalism actually has a lot to share with us about not just the trends and why they are happening, the way that they're happening, how they're reacting to what's going on in the marketplace and in culture, how they lead culture, how they follow, etc. But also just how the business side of that industry works, which is, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry,
Mhm.
as we all learned in The Devil Wears Prada. And, all of that stuff. I'm seeing a lot of like one of the stories that I see a lot of now in fashion journalism that I find fascinating is there's a new crop of designers who are really making a push to do renewable work, to work with renewable materials because a lot of textiles, and again, something else that I learned from fashion journalism is that one of the worst textiles for the planet is unfortunately one of the ones I love to rock the most: denim. Denim is absolutely not just the growing and the harvesting of the cotton, but the dyeing and the process of that is terrible. And of course, it is absolutely most of the toxicity of it is happening in, I can't remember which part of the world. I want to say somewhere in Southeast Asia. Again, showing my American ignorance on the topic, but again, that's something that I
Hmm.
never would have known about. So there's a lot more to fashion than just like, oh my God, this is the latest purse we're wearing. And I would love to be able to step away from like, local news and just do something else. And that's just a thought.
I think that's 1,000% correct because I'm sure there are, um, it does, we've both been in the local news industry for a long period of time and very appreciative of it, love knowing what's going on in our communities. But you're right. Sometimes I think that's the thing too. We all have other interests, and sometimes those other interests in our lives are, also need to be explored. And you're right. Like for me, I love, film and television. I mean, I love consuming media and also going, the amount of shows that I love consuming on social that is so unusual to me. The fact that I'm watching shows online that are not part of broadcast or any kind of, they're just people's local content that they create. It's content creators who are out there making their own stuff and being able to watch it. It's interesting watching the habits, the viewing habits of the audience and how that's changing the industry. It's scary in some senses, um, but also really exciting. It's like I think it's really shaking up the industry as a whole. We're seeing it, of course, we've seen it because it's where we are in terms of journalism, but as we are all be very well aware of, it's in media in general. The media industry is just going through a lot because of, you know, how you create content, how many shows are being created, how many films are being created, how many, you know,
How
companies are
people
coming,
are getting paid.
how people are getting paid. The fact that you have some companies that are going to be using, this is off the top of my head because of what I had seen recently. Companies using AI to edit
Hmm.
their content, and that means they'll be hiring less editors. Like these are all things that are going to be really changing the industry as a whole. And it's so interesting because you don't know where it's going. And I was listening to a podcast where they were talking about, I guess, the big broadcast TV networks. And
Okay.
I haven't watched that in years, broadcast television. I've always watched, for years it's just whatever's on, the streaming platforms, or you put something on YouTube. But how they're talking about they started advertising for, for certain, um, it's like the ratings were always about from 18 to let's say 54 when there's two separate demos, but it pretty much goes from like 18 to 54 as a whole.
I'm gonna say that's a
And
huge swing.
I know it's like 18 to 34, then it goes like I think 34 to 54, something like that. And I think what's fascinating is just watching how those ratings that were so important for broadcast TV now are not as, I shouldn't say they're not as important, but they have to find a different way of selling to their advertising audience because of the fact that their audience is just generally a lot older. It's like 70. You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
and
yeah, a lot of broadcast channels are, I think that's their real crisis point is, it's mostly older people. And how do you reach the next generation?
so if
Can you?
that disappears,
Which it will, time, space,
and it
continuum.
will, but that's the thing. What impact does that have on everybody? The jobs that get lost, the amount of content that gets created. Does it go into more social? Using digital, yes, but even that's a place that people aren't really that sure about in terms of advertisers and how you monetize off of them and who has. It's so interesting because it's something that is really just getting sort
Well, I
of
do
sussed
wonder,
out.
like, if that's, I mean, not if that is something that is definitely, definitely happening. And so, um, when you mention, just jobs that are lost in broadcasting, for example,
Mhm.
not for example, just period. say you shift to like more online stuff, that doesn't need to be done in a studio. And then
Nope.
now I'm thinking of all the people who work in a studio and all of those jobs get lost.
Right.
Like, and how do people handle that? Do you just start letting people retire and then never replacing them? Or do
Well,
you
yeah.
lay people off like we were? Like,
And also those jobs really don't get, you know, filled back up. And so that means it changes the industry as to like what jobs do people want? What are they training for? It's just we're in this weird moment of where do we go?
I would
We're
want to say
evolving.
though, yes, I would want to say though that for, again, as I'm thinking right now, for those jobs that could be lost, um, there is still a lot of like technique and expertise that a lot of those people have that you just can't, like, not everything can be done in a cell phone. And as somebody who,
Hmm.
does a lot with her cell phone, but not everything can be. Things like, thinking of more filming, for example, even if you're filming for a social media or something, I don't know, but still, like, being a videographer, that is a skill. Being a cinematographer, that is a skill. Like, those are still skills that are worth paying for. But I guess when I think of the jobs that would get cut, I'm thinking of people who are in charge who are like, great, we can do this even cheaper, and then just without giving any real thought to the degree of skill that you're just cutting in the name of cost cutting. I don't know.
Or paying people less because there is a
Oh, well, the
higher
new people, of course,
saturation.
get like paid less.
But even for positions that are there, I mean, there might be some, of course, who command certain salaries, but I mean, I think it's interesting just to watch how this all where it's all going to go. And I think we're watching it happen in real time, which is uh, I don't know if we've ever been in this place before. So much is happening all at the same time. We've
Yes.
seen certain industries go through certain things at certain times, but this is something that's just happening to everyone at the same time. And so, um, yeah, I'm just really curious to see how it all plays out. And that interests me, because it's a changing industry and
I
it's
mean, it
always going to be
interests me
around.
just as a consumer of media, but it also interests me as a media professional. Like,
Yeah,
you know, again, going back to one of our earlier conversations about how like one person cannot do 30 different jobs.
right.
I have developed a very, like in the movie, I have a very particular skill set, but I do have a very particular skill set. I'm really, really good at it, but it's pretty specific here. And it's not that I'm against obviously learning new things. I've been nothing but learning new things as we've
Hmm.
been working on this podcast project, but it's worth having people on a team who are, have honed different specialties, who are skilled in different specialties. Anyway,
Yeah,
I don't know. But then again, nobody knows.
yeah. So,
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, I guess, how do you see, I don't know, yourself versus your career? Because that's been the other big challenge for me.
um, you mean how do I see myself versus like who I am in
Well, now
terms of
that
like
you've been taken,
separating?
yeah, separated, you've been taken out of the last job that you had, which was attached to the career you were building, or at least that's definitely the case for me. And so, does that change your relationship and how you see yourself?
Uh,
This could just very much be a question for me.
let me hear what you have to say first. Maybe that'll.
Oh, okay. Well,
How do you see it?
yes, it completely did. Like I was, and I'm still working to, work on my career. And if it, evolves and develops in different directions, that's one thing, but still very much like, I still have a clear career path for myself. And so being removed from it, while in some ways jarring, at the same time is also like, I don't know. I've been able to consider other things that I can do, which before I had such clear tunnel vision that that was never
Yeah,
really a question. Like, I have widened the aperture of my life.
that's interesting. Okay.
That's a
I
better,
love it. I love it. Did you ever, did you have a different path for yourself before being laid off? Did you have a certain path that you saw yourself going down?
yeah,
And what was that?
that was to continue to grow in the broadcasting arena that I was in, and perhaps to go from maybe just, local to
Hmm.
perhaps a different stage. Like, I still have aspirations of finally doing something at the national level.
Hmm.
And yeah,
I think that for me is what's been different is the fact that I think this has actually given me the chance to kind of see that it's given me the chance to try and do something that was more for me and looking at wanting to be part of the universe of podcasting. It's always been something that I've loved. Even if I, I think that this has been, but at the same point, doing the jobs that we were doing, I don't really feel like I had the opportunity to try and do that. You know, you get kind of caught up in the
no.
day to day,
Mm-hmm.
and the day to day, it was always like, guess what? You woke up in the morning and, I would check in with my co-AP Christina and we would just go over the news topics and you kind of just there never was a chance to catch up or it didn't feel that way. There probably was maybe, but again, when you burn out, you kind of just go on this treadmill of like, okay, doing your job day to day. Um, and being I I really do believe that what's been helpful with this stepping away has allowed me to kind of really see like I love this part of the industry. I've always loved this part of the industry. I've always wanted to be part of it, but it was now there's an opportunity to kind of trying to work this out and talking about the stuff like you said, like we're interested in. So I think it's helped me probably focus on things that I enjoy and trying to, you know what I mean? Like really seeing it,
Yeah.
like and looking at different ways of using these skill sets. And which I think first off, I probably was thinking, what the hell am I going to do? When we were laid off, I think that was my first thing was I, I wasn't, everything was sort of, disappearing. You saw all these jobs going, and honestly, at the very beginning, you were almost in a state of shock and kind of just dealing with,
Yeah.
m-
100%.
mourning that job and feeling weird personally too, because even though, you know, it it isn't personal, it's business, it feels personal.
Okay, wait. I would like to quote Meg Ryan from You've Got Mail. When people say it's not personal, it's business, that's only because it wasn't personal to you. The person
Yeah,
on the laid off end of it, no,
yeah,
it's really effing
it's
personal.
personal.
So it's not personal, it's business. That's only because it's not personal to you.
And so for
Sorry,
me,
that's I.
no, no, but that's no, but that's how it feels. It's like it feels like you've been rejected, It's like it's that whole
Or
it's not
dumped.
you, or yes, it's not you.
It's
It's
not
me.
you, it's the
It's
budget.
me. It's we're and I get that, but so it takes a little bit of time, and even when you do, it takes time to then sort of try to figure out, okay, well, where do like you said, you for me, not having feel like I was that focused about what was next, this gave me the opportunity to start focusing on what was next. So
It
taking
did
that step
force
away.
me to look at my career in a very different way that I had not done before. And one of those things is that I had always, you know, in the goal of building my career, it was always about, okay, here's the skill set that I have developed and honed. How can I make that work for somebody else? The
Right.
question was never like, how do I make that work for me? That question never even entered my mind.
I I agree. And I think sometimes that's what happens when you work um i- in certain jobs, and actually it could be in any job. It just depends on the person themselves. And I think I know for me personally, working in the industry we worked in, it was because you were working so like 7 days. You felt like you were on the clock 7 days a week.
Oh yeah.
And, because you'd get something broke on a Sunday, you had to work on it. Your something broke on a Saturday, you were looking at your phone. Is that something we need to cover on Monday? So you never really felt like you were able to turn it off. And therefore, you weren't really focusing on you all the time. It was about the job and it was about someone else. And so I think that's what this has given to me, being able to really start to reevaluate, yeah, other interest and see that what I'm able to contribute and seeing that, oh shit, I do actually have these skill sets and I just need to focus on those. And like you said, whether it's doing it and now it's doing it for ourselves, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which kind of
Well,
leads to, I think, where you're going.
oh, okay. I was gonna say because we do have a little bit of an announcement, and bear with us because I wrote a very loose script. But Dom, if you'd like to
Yeah,
kick us off, I try to break it up so that I didn't give us each lines, but anyway, if you want to kick us off, we can start.
sure, sure. So basically, just starting out, been so appreciative of everybody who has listened along the way. And it's been an amazing experience. Um, but we are sort of looking to power down for the summer a little bit for ourselves. Not taking, the whole summer off. But, we are sort of, we'll still be doing an idea that what we're going to be doing actually is kind of still doing weekly episodes,
We'll
but
definitely still doing weekly.
and but doing them in shorter bites. Just more of conversations between Jenna and I, just chatting about, you know, whatever is happening, whether it's something topical or something that's going on in the news, or so that's kind of like what we're looking to. That's how we're going to be doing this summer. Shorter, little light in our loads too, in terms of what we're doing. Um, right, Jenna?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're just for the summer, we're just not going to be doing the big interviews like we had been for the majority of the show. Doesn't mean that we're not going to be doing that anymore because we are going to pick that back up again in August, which is when we are planning on coming back with our full 1 hour long episodes. Um, but yeah, so and in the immediate term, we're going to be taking after this episode, we're going to take 2 weeks for both of us because in all fairness, what is it? We got laid off December 1st and we started this podcast
End of
late
January.
January. And so yeah, so we're gonna take 2 weeks to not do anything. I feel like this is gonna be more of a challenge for me than it is for Dom. Because I don't idle well. But that's 2 weeks, just 2 weeks where we're not going to do anything. And then, like Dom said, we'll be back with shorter episodes and conversations. Again, journalism covers a wide breadth of information. It's not just, the politics, which I'm sure this summer we will all be super saturated with, but there's other stories and storylines that are worth following. That can be anything from the serious to the silly. So we can come back and we will be back and we will be discussing some of those just as we work on pre-production, which officially our official day for the hour-long episodes will begin again August 23rd.
And we met and we sort of went over some ideas that we had of cool
We had a
series
lot
we
of
wanted
ideas,
to.
yeah.
And we just realized that we need time to work on those ideas and, and not burn ourselves out that way and also still deliver
I
really good
believe the
content.
professional term for that is pre-production.
Sure. Pre-production. A-
Pre-production,
and still, and deliver really good content. So that's
which
our
is
that's
key.
our
That's
goal.
number one. Yeah.
So so yeah, so take the next couple after this episode, we'll be down for 2 weeks. And we'll start back with our shorter conversations on
June
June
28th.
28th. Okay.
That's right. So yeah, well, I want to say a huge thank you to everybody.
Yes.
Again, this is like a journey I did not see coming, and did not realize that I think in a lot of ways I needed. And so I want to continue building and developing and growing this with you, Dom.
And
So
same here, Jenna. I'm so excited to take us to the next level and to announce certain things along the way about what we're doing and super excited.
I'm super proud of us. I really
Yes,
am
I am.
because my God. Anyway, so yeah, but big thank you to everyone who's been listening. We really could not have gotten this far had, those of you who are tuning in and pressing play, hitting follow, hitting like, all of those little signs of support mean everything. So yeah, give us 2 weeks and June 28th, pew pew pew. We'll be back.
Thank you, Jenna. Thanks for being there the whole time, and thank you for everything. I couldn't have asked for a better partner on this mission. You're the best.
All right.
All right.
Bye, everybody. Laid Off and Looking is an independent podcast conceived of and created by Jenna Flanagan and Domenic Camia. Music provided by Jay Cowett, research by Lori Ruthenbucker. Reach out to us anytime at laidofandlookingpod@gmail.com. New episodes drop every Friday at noon.